meeting. Appreciate if all of you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then following a invocation by Pastor Dallas Jackson of Renew Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join me in prayer. God, thank you for this opportunity to be here in this great county, the city, Lord. And do pray for the supervisors and leaders. Just pray for wisdom and kindness and clarity of mind. Also pray for those who are sharing this morning. Also give them clarity of mind as they speak and share. And also during this holiday season, Christmas and New Year and everything, Lord, we just pray for your peace, especially for those who are entering in a new season without loved ones, changes in circumstances. So we pray for joy, for our families, for this meeting, and for your wisdom. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor, for those comments. Appreciate it. All right. Not having any presentations today, I'd like to open up public comment period. But in public comment period, we do have one presentation, which will be conducted by Supervisor Terry Withrow with Store Transportation on being named the 2024 Bus Transportation of the Year. I'm trying to go off from memory what it says on the certificate. But anyway, Don Store from Store Transportation's here. Thank you.
Thanks, Maddie. So this morning, we're recognizing Store Transportation. And all of you know Store. They've been around here since 1952, yeah, forever. And the work they've done here locally, not only just in their business, but just in helping all of us, nonprofits. I've known Donald forever. Our kids played football together at Central Catholic, and Store Transportation's just been always there when we need them. We had a thing recently where we had a nonprofit that was heading up to the hills, heading up to Tahoe area, and I could call Donald on a short notice, and instantly he provided the buses to get the guys up there and back, and just your company has just been such a respected company here in the community, Donald, and we're so grateful that you guys are here. So I just want to present you the certificate on behalf of the Board of Supervisors for recognition for the 2024 School Bus Contractor of the Year, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit if you want.
Thanks, Terry. Board members, community. So yeah, Store has been in this community since 1952. My grandfather started the business. We transport special needs students and elderly, transit. But this award is really special because it's where we started in 52 with school buses. One company in the United States is given this award once a year, and Store got it in 2024. So that's a really... That's a huge compliment to our company and our community that we serve. We're very proud to tell everybody that we are from Modesto, Stanislaus County, and been here for a long time. We plan on staying, and thank you to the board and all the community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. I'm going to tell you, we got one more thing. I'm going to call you again in a couple days for another favor here. So, thanks, Donald.
All right. Well, thank you. Congratulations again to Store Transportation. Well deserved. Appreciate you being here, Don. Next, I'm going to move to public comment period, or continue with public comment period. I do have some public comment cards, and if you, after the final public comment card, if somebody would still like to comment, they're more than welcome to. But just make sure you state your name for the record and direct all comments toward the dais. And so it's fair to everybody keep the comments to 5 minutes. First public comment card I have is from Joni Greep.
Good morning, and I'm Joni Greep, and I haven't talked to you guys in a while, so I'm a little nervous. but I'll get right to it. Last week, the Congressional Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, comprised of 16 U.S. representatives, concluded and released their final report on a 2-year thorough investigation and review into the COVID-19 pandemic and our government's response. The 500-plus page report details the bipartisan committee's findings and conclusions. It is vital to look back on what we got right, what we got wrong, and to recognize and acknowledge our mistakes to ensure we don't repeat them. This report reveals a whole host of actions our government got wrong in response to the pandemic, and I will touch on a few of them, but I want to start with something positive. I want to publicly acknowledge and thank the board for not following the status quo of many other local governing bodies that blindly followed harmful mandates and unscientific guidance until the bitter end. This board listened to its community members who were on the front lines experiencing the real-time effects and consequences of our response in healthcare, in education, in public safety, in local business, and in our individual families. This board did incredible work with securing and expanding monoclonal antibodies for our community, in passing a resolution to prohibit county facilities from requiring vaccination status to enter buildings or obtain services. And this board ended our local public health emergency an entire year before our state lifted its own. Because of your leadership, I truly believe our county made a difference in minimizing the collateral damage of mandates and policies that hurt more than they helped. The conclusion of this report reveals, however, what we knew, that a ton of damage was being done, and much of our government's response was a disaster. It reveals the lies we were repetitively gaslit into believing were truth. It reveals the disaster of cover-ups and outright deception. It reveals the disaster of billions of dollars wasted, stolen, and defrauded. It reveals the disaster of public health, how our public health agencies enabled harmful policies and how they blatantly ignored science like natural immunity. It reveals the disaster of censorship and government misinformation campaigns. And most disturbingly of all, it reveals the disastrous effects on our children caused by unscientific mandates, guidelines, and policies that were forcefully implemented and treated as if they were law. Chairman Wenstrup states in his opening letter of the report what so many of us were saying throughout the entirety of the pandemic. The Constitution cannot be suspended in times of crisis, and restrictions of freedom sow distrust in public health. A few of the titles of sections directly from this report. Page 198, there was no quantitative scientific support for 6 feet of social distancing. Page 203, masks and mask mandates were ineffective at controlling the spread of COVID-19. Page 214, unscientific lockdowns caused more harm than good. Page 336, vaccine mandates were not supported by science and caused more harm than good. Page 412, long-term school closures were not supported by available science and evidence. Those are just a few sections. And it feels like a lifetime ago, but I know it really wasn't, when I stood at this dais and spoke to you gentlemen about broken trust, about the lack of statistical evidence to support our state's extreme, heavy-handed response that truly affected our children longer than any other population in the state. We know fear was used as a weapon. People were manipulated and coerced into compliance with mandates and lockdowns that were arbitrary and not based on science. That is what this report reveals. And it reignites a flame in me and a desire to always speak up for what is true and what is right. Parents like me who spoke up, we were labeled as the fringe minority by our own governor. We were misunderstood, we were mislabeled, we were called extremists, we were called science deniers. Our own president mocked us for speaking up for freedom and informed consent, but we were speaking the truth and we knew it. I'm sorry, you guys know me. When we protested the governor's vaccine mandate for our children to attend school, when we opposed COVID bills like SB 871, SB 866, and AB 2098, when we spoke out against the forced masking of our children and prolonged school closures, it didn't matter how the governor or anyone else painted us. We knew we were speaking the truth, and it didn't matter if we were the minority or not. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, I will finish. My favorite quote is from Booker T. Washington, who said, "A lie doesn't become the truth, wrong doesn't become right, and evil doesn't become good just because it's accepted by the majority." Again, I want to acknowledge and thank you guys for listening to your community members, for not blowing us off, for not discounting our questions and concerns. I truly believe you made a difference in our county, and I just feel that deserves credit, and I wanted to thank you in front of everyone in light of the conclusions that were just released in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jennifer Ann Raleigh, and then Ioma. I apologize.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ann Aoyama. My friends here in Modesto call me Raleigh. I've come here because I believe this board values the concerns of the residents in Stanislaus County. I believe you have an open mind, and I'd like this to end with you having a better understanding of in-home supportive services, also known as IHSS. I've been a provider since 2010. I'm a caregiver for my twin disabled sons, Jackson and Leland. When my sons, they have autism, they need 24-hour supervision. When they were 3 years old, I had the the choice to keep them at home or institutionalize them. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't look my little boys, they were just 3. To put this into perspective, I am generationally poor and uneducated. My family, my cousins, we barely get through high school. Oftentimes when we do, we have children. I was the first one to not do that. I was the first one to get an associate's degree at community college, and it felt so good that I went on to get my bachelor's and my master's of fine arts. I have the highest credentials in my profession as a visual artist. And when my sons were 3, I had the choice to pursue that. My mother-in-law said, hey, we can just forget this ever happened. You can visit them on Christmas and on their birthdays. And it wasn't really an option for me. In-home supportive services allows me to take care of my children in their home, in their community. It lets them be a part of Modesto. And instead of looking at a tenure, at my dream job, tenure track at a junior college to give someone else the opportunity that I was given, and thinking about retiring one day, I am taking care of my children, and that's okay. Because that gives them dignity, and that gives them access to our community. And that's a good thing. Pardon me. I'm coming here because sometimes we're called glorified babysitters, and we're really not. We are not RNs. We aren't doctors, but we are educated. We have lives, and we do a lot of things on the fly. We have to do a lot of problem solving. We do a lot of jobs that cost a lot more to families and the county that if you had to pay someone to do. My 3-year-old sons ran away. I have a 13-year-old at La Loma Junior High, and she's doing great. She's thinking about a dance, but when her brothers that were that old, we were busy cleaning poop off the walls and running into moving traffic. So this is above and beyond what just being a mom is, or a care, what you would think of as babysitting. It's a huge need, and we take care of our veterans, we take care of our grandparents, we take care of our police officers, we take care of anyone who finds himself, maybe has a fall, and it turns into something that's a little bit more long-term. We're the ones that help you stay in your house. And we do it at a very small cost, I think. I'm here just to give you a face to the number and the budget that sometimes you guys do have to look at. And I know it's hard because everybody wants something and you don't have it all. But we're not just a number. We're a family here in Modesto. And you guys have the power when you meet with your people to help us out, to get a little bit more of a living wage. I make less than someone at In-N-Out does by $3. Just to put that in perspective. And I raised 3 children by myself. Because when I said no to that institution, I also said no to a marriage. He just couldn't handle that. So anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate this opportunity and this venue. And again, this is what IHS looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker I have is Chantel Turner.
Good morning. My name is Chantel Turner. I am an IHS provider. I take care of Willie Grace. I've been a home care provider with him for 4 years. The doctors made a mistake and amputated his leg, so I've been taking care of him. Like they say, $17 an hour is kind of hard when you have rent at $1,900 a month, and I'm his roommate along with his care provider. So with me being his care provider, I have to take the chance of pinching this to pay this, to provide food also, because he doesn't get food stamps, neither one of us. So we have to go and check the meat department, to check the yellow tags to see if we can afford to eat, because it's either pay your rent or get something to eat or pay some bills. Because IHSS I don't make enough to try to help him, so I pinch so that he can be able to eat what he would like. So when you guys think about the budget, adding on with us as a little raise, it would help. It would really help. Thank you.
Mary Ann Reynolds?
Good morning, board members. I am Mary Ann Reynolds, and this morning I'm speaking on behalf of the Peace Life Center regarding to express our concern with the slow response from our police and sheriff's departments to the hateful stickers appearing in various parts of our city and county. These racist stickers targeting our Latino and Black communities can only increase a climate of hate and division. I ask the board to explore the reasons for the slow response from the police and sheriff's department. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Randon Kirkbride.
Good morning. My name is Randon Kirkbride, and I'm here on behalf of the Stanislaus Sworn Deputies Association. We are an association of currently 189 members who work patrol or operations at the Sheriff's Department. We are the ones that you see on the street in the patrol cars. We are the ones that are investigating crimes. We are the ones that come to your homes and your businesses when you call 911. I'm here to ask for your help with a problem. It is a national problem, but it is even greater in this state, and that is recruitment and retention. All across this country, and more so in California, people do not want to be cops anymore. They do not want to be sheriff's deputies and police officers. When I first applied for the sheriff's office many years ago, there were over 300 people in my group alone that were applying. Today, we are lucky if we get a handful, a dozen. And this problem is statewide. It's not just in California. It's not just in Stanislaus County. Recruitment and retention is vital for our department and every agency in this state and in this country. We provide a service to the community, and if we do not have the bodies to respond to the calls, like she had mentioned, that waiting, the time, the wait for us to show up, that affects the community directly. If we do not have officers and deputies on the street at adequate levels, we cannot respond to crimes, we cannot proactively patrol and do our jobs and serve the community. Our department is at a crossroads. We are having to compete with other agencies within our county and in the surrounding area for those bodies. Statewide, agencies are having to raise pay, raise benefits, and often offer incentives for laterals, for new hires, for people that served in the military, to attract those people to them and to retain and keep what they have. This market has become extremely competitive. We here in Stanislaus County and our association believe that we are below the curve. We are not able to compete with the surrounding agencies, and we have, many of our members are here today in support of us, in support of the sheriff. Our sheriff and our association and other associations at the department have had a great working relationship with the current and former Board of Supervisors. With your help, we have been able to make extreme progress and accomplishments at the department that would not have been done without the cooperation of you, Sheriff Dirksey, and the employee associations. There's only so much the sheriff can do. He can control working conditions, morale. We have a great health and wellness program that he has implemented, but we are not fully staffed. We are allotted 209 positions. We are currently at 189. With this extreme competition and all the incentives that are out there, many of our members are starting to look elsewhere outside of Stanislaus County. They're wanting to put their families and their livelihoods ahead of any loyalty to this county. They are going to go where they can provide for their family the best. And right now, we are behind the curve. We need to work together. We need your help and your continued support to close that gap with other agencies and to help us become competitive and stay competitive in this market. Many years ago, we had layoffs and pay cuts. I was lucky to survive that. I witnessed firsthand what happened to the Sheriff's Department and the effect on the community. We had less deputies on the streets. We had extremely low morale, and our response times were extremely long. Imagine coming home, finding your home burglarized, calling the Sheriff's Department, and having to wait hours or even until the next day for a deputy to respond to help you out. That has happened. That was a reality. We have made great improvements. We've worked together with the Sheriff's Department, our unions, and the Board of Supervisors and the CEO to rebuild from those times. But we are at a point now where if we don't close that gap, if we don't become competitive once again, people are going to leave. We have 189. If 5 of these guys leave, if 10, 20, 30 of them leave, what will happen to our department? What will happen to our community? We serve the community. Without deputies on the streets proactively patrolling, it will be chaos. So I'm again asking for your support to continue to work with us and support us and work with our labor unions and our sheriff so that we can close that gap and we can become competitive and stay competitive in this market. Thank you.
All right. Next speaker I have is Matthew Orr.
Good morning, Board. Matthew Orr. I'm here on behalf of the Sheriff's Association for Sworn Personnel. I have worked for the Sheriff's Office for the last 10 years, and I'm here before you to ask for your guys' cooperation, just like Randon did. I started here as a third-generation deputy sheriff. My father and my grandfather were both San Joaquin County Sheriff's deputies. I chose to serve the community of Stanislaus because I grew up in Oakdale, and I wanted to bring my service to the community I grew up in. So my roots are in Stanislaus County, and I chose here for lower pay, although wanting to be here to serve the city and community that I grew up in. I can tell you right now, recruitment, just like which was mentioned before, is going to be an oncoming issue with agencies and their hiring incentives and bonuses. I know of at least 3 right now that are currently have already applied outside of this agency to go and chase that raise, because unlike most of what is left of the 3% at 50 retirement, our retirement banks on our pension, what we make. So in order for us, when we retire, to make an affordable living, we need that base pay. So I'm here asking you guys, Supervisor Condit, who has sat on boards, who has been in that union negotiation position, you know what it's like to be a public safety member and be here asking for that cooperation from the board, the CEO's office for that pay. These are hard men and women of the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Office that are here for support today, and we need that from you. Thank you.
All right, that's the final public comment card. If there's any other members of the public that would like to speak that didn't turn in public comment card, they're more than welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I was not able to be here last week due to a prior commitment, but I'd just like to address, ma'am, I did not catch your name. The issue that came up last week heavily here at the board meeting regarding the response to some of the hateful messages and so on that were posted. That was a long-term ongoing issue. The challenge that we had, and it is a frequent challenge across the county, is we had no police reports with any kind of specificity. We actually just, we are putting out, I think it's today, kind of a public service announcement to that effect. And this is not unique to this situation. It could be another community with another problem, ongoing burglaries or, car theft or something like that. Because the first thing that happens for really any law enforcement agency is when we are made aware of a situation like that, we immediately go pull crime stats and police reports and see what is factually being reported on the ground. We need to talk to victims, we need to talk to witnesses, and so we have to have that information provided to us. Last week, after that board meeting, there was some information provided to us from a community member. Within 48 hours, we had a suspect identified, and within 72 hours, that suspect was in custody, and a search warrant was served on the residence. That is leading to a hopefully successful prosecution of this individual. So I just want to say, I want to address this broadly, and again, the video will be coming out, I think, tonight. To that effect, with the public, we need police reports. You can call it in through anything from 911, the non-emergency line. It could go through Crime Stoppers, but we have to be able to talk to those victims, witnesses, and so on to get the specific details that we need in order to investigate the crime. So, thank you very much.
His name's Jeff Dirksey, just for the record.
I'm the sheriff.
So I just want to point out one other thing is that the sheriff and I were called out to Hilltop Ranch where Merced County Sheriff and the Stanislaus County Sheriff, there were a lot of copper wire thefts. And when the sheriff showed up, he brought his statistics out, and it was the same situation where there's been a lot of copper wire thefts, but none of it was reported. And so we were called into a meeting where people had asked, why are you doing more? And I think, I can't remember the statistics. I don't even want to pretend to know the statistics, but there weren't many reports of actual crime. And so if you see something, you have to report it to the sheriff's hotline. And is it 525 I had it last week.
2468, who do we appreciate?
Yeah,
That's our-
2468.
Yeah.
And or through Crime Stoppers if you don't want to. Please report anything you see. If you have a theft of any kind, you can call the non-emergency line and report it, because that's what really initiates action.
Right. If there's no further public comment card, I'll bring it back to the board for consent items. Before the board takes any action on the consent calendar, does anyone in the audience wish to provide public comment on any matter on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any item that the board members would like to pull for further discussion or explanation? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve all consent calendar items.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Withrow and second by Supervisor Chance-Condit. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. 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 Motion carries. Thank you. All right, now discussion items. Item 6.1, acceptance of the county clerk recorder and registrar of voters certified statement of the vote of the 2024 general election held November 5th, 2024. Conducting the discussion item will be Donna Linder, our county clerk recorder.
Good morning.
And elections officer.
Commissioner of Civil Marriage, you missed one. Good morning, Chairman, Supervisors, CEO, County Council. I'm here to bring the certified statement of vote for the 2024 presidential general election held on November 5th, 2024. The results are a little bit later than we would normally bring them due to the law created by Assembly Bill 3184 that prohibited election officers from certifying the election results until 28 calendar days after the election, which was December 3rd. So we followed that law and certified our election on December 3rd. This law is going to be repealed on January 1st, 2025. So for this election, we received over 200,000 ballots with a 68% turnout, and our largest in-person turnout in the last 4 years. The Elections Department utilized over 200 part-time staff, 469 volunteers, and out of those volunteers, 225 were high school students from 14 of our high schools throughout the county. I would also like to thank all the departments that assisted in the November election. It takes the whole county to run an election, especially of this size, and I wanted to thank ITC, the county libraries, multiple divisions of GSA, Stanislaus Ag, Aging and Veterans, the Sheriff, Public Works, and the CO's department. These departments generously gave staff time, locations, and assisted in the election process. We're grateful for all of our departments that come along and assist us in the election process. So I would also like to request that the board accept the County Clerk Recorder Registrar of Voters Certified Statement of Vote of the 2024 general election held on November 5th, 2024, and declare the results for the November 5th presidential general election pursuant to the County Clerk Recorder Registrar of Voters Statement of Vote.
Any questions?
I would just ask, because the elections take longer and longer in California versus the rest of the U.S., and I hear lots of folks talk about it. Can you just talk about the ballot stamps and how long you have to accept them, kind of like what the process is?
Yes. So in California, we are an all-mail state. So every vote-by-mail ballot, the signature has to be verified against the signature on the voter's registration. If they forget to sign or they sign in a way that does not compare to their signature on registration, we have to give them the opportunity to correct that. So they're sent a form to send back to us or contact us in some way. We have to accept mail for 7 days after the election. So if ballots are mailed and postmarked on election day, we accept them for 7 more days. So that is 7 days after November 5th. And then after all of the mail is received, anytime a cure for people who their signature did not match or they didn't sign, we have to wait 8 days after that. So 15 days after the election, we are still waiting for items to be returned to our office. And then anything that comes back, we still have to compare all of those signatures. We also have same-day registration in California. So we received 3,195 same-day registrations in our county. A lot of them first-time voters or people who had just moved to the county. And all of those are done after all of the vote-by-mail are compared just to ensure integrity of the election. So all of that takes time. In Stanislaus County, we are usually finished sooner than the 28 days. California gives 30 days for an election to be finished because of all of that comparison and research work that has to be done.
And you had the closest race in the United States, right?
It was fun.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
At least no recount. I know you're thankful for that. Good morning, Donna. Thank you so much for the presentation and all the work that you and your incredible staff do in serving our county residents. So I know you mentioned that the law is going to be repealed for the 28 days. So what happens next? What is the alternative of that? What are the foreseen requirements moving forward?
Well, we know that this particular assemblyman is proposing another law, so we'll see what happens for 2026. But what it would do is send counties back to, we have up to 30 days, but we can finish as soon as we have counted our last ballot. For Stanislaus County, historically, that's been 15 to 20 days after the election. So those results would be done quicker for us.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll wait and see kind of what the infinite wisdom of Sacramento will bring down to us. But I do kind of have an outside-the-box idea, and maybe this is something me and you can discuss further along with county staff. But when I was on the Ceres City Council, we approved strike teams for our fire services. When there be a large fire up north or wherever it might be, we would deploy a unit, a team from our Ceres Fire Department to go and help in that. And maybe we could do something similar regarding elections, to where if other counties finish more expediently, we might have an MOU with surrounding counties or neighboring counties to deploy counters or staffers to help if we might be shorthanded, or vice versa if the shoe's on the other foot. Because you know, as I know, as we all know, perception is everything, especially in politics, and with a cloud over our elections, that's something we can't afford as a civilization. You know, our elections are everything, they're sacred, and the more expedient we are, I do believe that kind of helps unmurky the waters. And so if we thought of something outside the box and consider that model of a fire strike team being deployed to other counties to help count or to get these elections certified in a more expedient fashion, maybe that's something we can explore moving forward.
I look forward to that.
All right. Any other comments from members of the board?
Just, Donna, thank you for your hard work. We can always count on you. We know everything that comes through there is right and correct, so thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to take it out to the public. Any public comment on this item? Any questions? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Thank you once again, Donna, on behalf of the board and the residents of Stanislaus County, for you and your office and your team for another election cycle. And then I'm sure you'll take a vacation and then it starts all over again. But if there's no further comments, I'd request a motion of acceptance of the certified statement of the vote.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Buck Condit, second by Supervisor Chance Condit. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, item 6.2, consider the request of the sheriff to declare a conflict with county council and to contract with the employee conflict legal counsel to assist the sheriff in the performance of his duties. Conducting item 6.2 will be Thomas Bose, our county counsel.
All right, looks like we're ready to go. Good morning, Chair, Supervisors, and Mr. Hayes. I am Thomas Bose, County Counsel. This morning, the board is asked to consider a request from the sheriff to hire outside counsel to give him advice about a conflict he believes he has with the board involving his statutory duties as sheriff. Attached to this agenda item is a letter from the sheriff dated November 8th, 2024, which the sheriff delivered to the board on November 12th, 2024. In that letter, the sheriff requests the board to appoint legal counsel to advise him in an ongoing dispute with the board about the selection and purchase of dispatch software. On the slide are 3 quotes from the sheriff's letter in which the sheriff describes 3 areas of dispute with the board on the subject of dispatch software. In summary, the sheriff disagrees with the board's decision to stay in the Consolidated Emergency Dispatch Agency, sometimes known as SR 911, which is a separate public entity and which has provided emergency dispatch services to the county for decades. The sheriff disagrees with SR 911's decision to purchase computer-aided dispatch software, also known as CAD, by Central Square Technologies over his choice of a product Oracle is developing. The sheriff disagrees with the proposed action of the board to approve the purchase of software licenses needed to allow not only the Department of the Sheriff to receive dispatch services from SR 911, but also needed by other first responder and safety services like fire, emergency medical services, and probation. Next slide. I'm sure the audience, after reading the agenda item, might be wondering what exactly is going on here. And for the benefit of the public and at the risk of sounding like a law professor, I'll try to set the stage. And if I get a little long-winded, I'm sure Supervisor Chiesa will motion me to move it along here. But I want to start off with talking about the division of powers between the board and various county officials. The county is a subdivision of the state and gets many powers, the many powers it enjoys from the state constitution, primarily from the state legislature through statutes that they adopt. The county uses those powers through the Board of Supervisors and through the various elected and appointed county officers. Some of those county officers, although funded by the board and elected locally, perform their role as state actors rather than county actors. For example, the district attorney and the sheriff primarily, with a few notable exceptions, enforce state law and do so under the California Attorney General. Consequently, in every county in the state, the sheriff functions as both a state and a county actor. Furthermore, the many boards of supervisors in the state are required by statute to ensure that county officers, including the sheriffs, faithfully perform their duties and follow budgetary guidelines set by these boards. So you're starting to see the tension in the division of labor here. However, a board cannot encroach on the constitutionally and statutorily designated investigative and prosecutorial functions of the sheriff and the district attorney of the county. Oversight of district attorneys and sheriffs in the investigation, detection, prosecution, and punishment of crime falls within the purview of the California Attorney General. Therefore, a board's supervisory authority is limited. So while a board is required to oversee the sheriff, whether a board can exercise its many powers over the sheriff is dependent on the specific type of duty or action the sheriff may undertake. The existing case law as to where that line of authority falls in any specific situation is also limited. In federal courts, where judges try to decide where to place liability for unconstitutional policing action with the state or with the county, the analysis hinges on who is the final policymaker. In state courts, courts engage in a highly fact-specific, intensive analysis. The reported cases are few and deal with situations in which a board uses its budgetary powers and in doing so reduce or reorganize county staff. The outcome of these cases has depended on the goal or purpose of the board in exercising their budgetary power. Leaving now the issue of division of powers between the board and the sheriff, I'll turn to the role and function of my office, County Counsel. As County Counsel, I am the exclusive public officer vested with the duty and authority to advise and represent the county, the Board of Supervisors, and the various county officers in all civil legal matters. My client is the county organization as a whole, not individual board members or individual county officers. However, under our ethical rules, in certain circumstances, a county official may become an independent client of the county council if the official possesses the authority to act independently of the county. It is this independence which is the key concept to keep in mind here. I think the next slide will put this issue into better focus. One of the roles of the California Attorney General's office is to research and answer questions for various state and local officials. In 1997, the AG's office provided guidance on when a county council has a potential conflict of interest between his county client and the sheriff's office. First, the sheriff must be exercising his independent authority as to his investigative functions, jail-keeping duties, personnel assignments, and allocation of budgeted funds. Second, a dispute or disagreement involving any of these areas exists between the sheriff and the board that could result in litigation between the sheriff and the board. Third, when the sheriff asks the county council for legal advice on his actions or plans in one of those areas, and such advice is given, an attorney-client relationship is created that is separate and distinct from the county council's relationship with the county as a whole. I hope I've set the stage, and now I'll discuss my analysis of the sheriff's request. As the AG set out, the first question to consider is whether the sheriff is acting in his independent authority. The sheriff complains that the board's decision to stay in the SR 911 authority and the authority's selection of inferior software undermines his management of personnel engaged in law enforcement. The decision to form a Joint Powers Authority, or JPA, and to exercise the common powers of the county and the city to create a public safety answering point, also known as the PSAP, is a legislative decision reserved to the Board of Supervisors. One that the board took decades ago, and as far as I'm informed, no sheriff in any county that has a centralized emergency dispatch function has claimed to infringe on their law enforcement functions. As highlighted in the slide, the decision to form a JPA, or stay in the JPA for that matter, could have many legitimate legislative purposes, such as improved emergency response services, including not only police and sheriff, but also fire and emergency medical services, to the communities within the county through sharing of resources, including personnel and technology, reduction in response times with fewer call transfers, and to follow the California Office of Emergency Services policy, which encourages consolidation of PSAPs, and to follow state law requirements to set up a public safety answering point. The state legislature, through the Warren 9/11 Emergency Assistance Act, requires every local public agency to have an emergency communication system. Through this act, the state legislature directed Cal OES to coordinate the implementation of the act, and importantly, one of the purposes of the act includes to encourage units of local government and combinations of such units to develop and improve emergency communication. Cost savings is also a legitimate consideration for the board in this decision. Consequently, I do not believe that a court would find this dispute as directly affecting the sheriff's independent duties. Next slide. The next dispute is with the SR 911 agency itself. The sheriff disagrees with the agency's choice of Central Square Technology computer-aided dispatch software over a product Oracle is developing. It's important to note that the SR 911 agency is a separate public entity, and they chose the Central Square software, not the county's Board of Supervisors. Therefore, there is no conflict on this issue between the sheriff and the county. The next issue is the potential for staff to present to the board a proposal to buy software licenses needed for county mobile data computers to access Central Square Technology's new CAD system. Sheriff deputies, fire agencies, and probation need these licenses to access SR 911's new system. Just because this decision may impact the sheriff does not itself mean that there is a conflict. There are many powers and duties of the Board of Supervisors that the board may employ and that necessarily affect the sheriff's duties. For example, there are reported cases where a board's use of the budgeting power affected the ability of the sheriff to perform their statutory duties, but this use was still found to be lawful exercise of the board's budgeting powers. Similarly, the board is required by statute to negotiate salary and working conditions with employee unions. The resulting MOUs affect the various county officials' separate duties. This combined exercise of the board's legislative, budgeting, and contracting authorities is proper due to the many issues to be balanced in the process. When we look at the purpose for which the software licenses would be bought, I fail to see any resemblance to those cases in which a board exercises its powers inappropriately. Next slide. I think the judge in the case of the County of Butte versus Superior Court was articulate in describing the issue. The board's many powers and oversight functions can conflict with the duties of a county officer. Also, the sheriff is not alone. In addition to the sheriff, the district attorney, the tax collector, the auditor, the register of voters, all have powers and functions separate and distinct from the Board of Supervisors. There is a reason the legislature separated these functions and powers. But these functions must work in a kind of harmony. When you look at it with that backdrop, the court's words bring the point home. While the sheriff, no doubt, along with the most heads of governmental offices, would understandably prefer to determine for himself the funding and personnel to be allocated to the agency for which he is responsible, that authority is vested in the Board of Supervisors. The chaos that would result if each agency of government were allowed to dictate to the legislative body the amount of money that should be appropriated to that agency or its staffing and salary levels is readily apparent. The budgetary process entails a complex balancing of public needs in many and varied areas with the finite financial resources available for distribution among those demands. It involves interdependent political, social, and economic judgments which cannot be left to individual officers acting in isolation. Rather, it is, and indeed must be, the responsibility of the legislative body to weigh those needs and set priorities for the utilization of the limited revenues and resources available. Next slide. Here is the question before the board. There are other issues I may need to explain depending on where your discussion takes you. For reference, I have outlined in the agenda item the statutory process that your board is taking. So following the sheriff's request, the board needs to make the decision outlined in this slide. Depending on which way your decision goes, you will either direct staff to take the action necessary to hire outside counsel, or the sheriff will have the opportunity to request the Superior Court to order you to hire outside counsel. At this point, are there any questions?
Thank you for the presentation, County Counsel Bose. And I'm going to open it up questions from board members.
Okay, simple question. Who would represent the sheriff if he went to the Superior Court?
So immediately going to court, he would have to pay for his own attorney in that process. Following, if he's successful in Superior Court, the board would hire counsel for him, and then you would be on the hook for paying for that those services.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to take it out to the public for comment or questions.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I am the sheriff, so since I forgot that last time. Having heard the report, I find it interesting in that if I'm to be one of the represented entities in this, I have never seen this report before, nor has there been a single conversation with County Council regarding my request. That being said, it was previously a closed session agendized item for County Council to discuss it with the board. In addition, County Council not only represents the board and the various county entities, it's also counsel for SR 911. And I think that that definitively creates a conflict. I would view it as somewhat analogous to the fox guarding the hen house. Maybe a bit strong or a bit off the wall, but I think it's fair to say that one attorney who does it all, or at least one firm, if we want to refer to the entirety of County Council as a firm, doing all of that would be difficult. I also know that County Council regularly hires outside counsel for a variety of matters, representing my office in various things, all sorts of different questions or problems, legal matters before the county. And I think that this is not an unreasonable request. And furthermore, I think that probably the first step in this request would be that an outside attorney would evaluate the potential conflict that County Council has. I think that that is an important piece to remember. This is one person making the decision for all of the impacted entities here. I'm not really going to get into the specifics of the question at hand. Suffice it to say that I think that the selection of a CAD program is clearly part of the investigative function of the sheriff's office. There's roughly 50 sheriff's deputies and sergeants and lieutenants and so on sitting right here, and while I'm not going to ask them to belabor the point and come up here, I'm pretty confident that all of them could come up here and say that CAD is the entry point for our investigations, and the effectiveness of that program is critical to our investigations. And since we have broached the topic, I'll briefly touch on the fact that Central Square is one of 12 different CAD products that are available across our country. We have evaluated exactly 3 of those 12, so 25%. I would submit that the selection process in and of itself is invalid because we've never gone through an RFP. To date, over 12 months of going down this road, 15 months, I have yet to understand what criteria was used to select this CAD. No one has ever been able to provide that because it does not exist. And so the mere way in which it was selected calls into question the efficacy of the program, much less all of the, what I'll call investigation that we have done into Central Square and the company itself and their failure to timely deliver their services. If it comes to the financial side, you are correct, the Oracle deal, which was approved by this body, the financial side is of huge benefit to this county, and we actually have a subsequent agenda item that's going to at least touch on that. And so I think all of that said, I think it is a very fair request that we bring in counsel to advise the sheriff's office on this matter and help us navigate all of the wickets, if you will. Subject to any of your questions. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wanting to comment on this item? Yeah, please come up and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm always trying to educate myself, so I'm kind of curious about the process, because it looks like what's happening now is that Sheriff Dirksey is bringing up an issue of a conflict of interest in jurisdiction and how this has to be handled. But my question is, as far as the public is concerned, what's the process as far as public comment about your decision on what system to finally use? Because I have questions I think is not relevant to this specific case, but I think I would need to speak later as this decision process goes forward. What's the process from here on after this gets resolved?
I thought you were going to ask what is the process after this decision, but I think what you're asking is what is the process for the selection of the software?
Yes, eventually. That's why it's not completely relevant here, and I don't want to belabor.
Maybe Jody can help me. The JPA has selected the software that they want to go with, Central Square. That software is being purchased by the city of Modesto. This is a JPA. It's being purchased by the city of Modesto. It'll be made available to the JPA for use. And then software licenses will need to be, software licenses will need to be procured or purchased by those agencies that connect with that CAD. So the Sheriff's Department will need a license to connect with the CAD. The fire agencies will need a software license to connect with the CAD, as will probation, and eventually emergency dispatch as well.
Okay, so when the budgetary item is up, say, from the sheriff's in this case, is that when there's feedback from the public possible? Or is this completely internal, the merits of the various programs? Because it sounds like the sheriff is challenging which CAD system is from his point of view.
I think the ability for the public to comment will be when the board is asked to decide as to whether or not to purchase the software licenses.
Okay, purchase.
Yeah.
I figure when there's money involved, there's got to be public comment. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm back again. I wanted to mention and say that we support the sheriff in this request. We are some of the people ultimately that have to use whichever software is chosen. It is used in our offices and our patrol vehicles, and if we have an old antiquated system that is not doing the job, it directly affects us, which directly affects the public. We believe that more time needs to be spent to look at all the options. As the sheriff had mentioned, we've only looked at 25%. Having outside counsel help to advise him, I think will help us work together. SR 911, the Board of Supervisors, the CEO of the Sheriff's Department, work together to come up with the best solution and the best software which will benefit all those affected. Our association at the end of the day will have to use this software in our vehicles, in our offices, And if it doesn't work for us, it's not going to work for the community. And I ask that you please honor the sheriff's request. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wanting to speak on this item?
Matthew Organ on behalf of the Sheriff's Association. I too stand with Sheriff Dirksey in this matter. As somebody who was a dispatcher prior to becoming a deputy sheriff, I know the ins and outs of working with a computer-aided dispatch system. I've heard horror stories about the Central Square system, and I'm not going to dive into that. But I do feel that there's been a failure of research on both ends of the entities as far as just jumping to conclusions for a certain dispatch software. I ask that you guys be open-minded and listen to what you guys approved back when we started with Oracle. It is a work in progress, and I think that the Sheriff's Office and the Sheriff himself ultimately has the community's best interest at heart for this system. So please do not be closed-minded for this agenda item. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board for further discussion, questions, or a possible motion.
So, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, this question here has nothing to do with the computer-aided dispatch. This has to do with whether there's a conflict of interest. The next item is the one that you might find more important. So, when we look at your analysis, I don't think this precludes us from going out and getting a second opinion. I think what it are the 3 points that were brought up by the sheriff, are they a conflict of interest to have county council? I just want to boil it down to have them represent. At this point, is there a conflict of interest? And going through each one of those points definitively, I think show that there's not a conflict of interest. It doesn't mean that there won't become a conflict of interest. This is what we're dealing with right now before us, and whether we hire outside counsel. I do think that getting a second opinion at some point, again, after this, there's no harm in doing that. But as we sit here, we're talking about the impact. Does it have an impact to the sheriff's independent authority? And I think that's clear because the Joint Powers Authority has dealt with this. To this point, we have a couple of members that sit on there. The governance changed, but it's Supervisor Buck Condit and Supervisor Manny Graywall, or Chairman Manny Graywall. So I think that's taken care of. And then remembering the board has broad authorities, but with that broad authorities, it's because there's broad purpose. There's public health component. We weigh different needs than the sheriff does, or the public health department, or the clerk recorder. So everyone has their view, but we're trying to balance the needs of everyone. So to this point, until there's such a time in which we think we might step in front of your authority, your independent authority, I don't see a conflict. I think that this item is, again, pretty self-explanatory. I would, again, after this, in a separate discussion, not today, but we should look at getting a second opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with you, Supervisor Chiesa, that I do not think that there is a conflict at this point, but at some point there may be, and I think that needs to be continued and followed. But as of right now, I do not believe that we are interfering with any investigative functions or jail keeping duties, personnel assignments, or allocation of budgeted funds. I do not believe that we are doing that, but at some point it may cross that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I don't have a Juris Doctorate degree. I'm not an attorney. But on the surface of things, I do see a conflict. If we have a single firm that is representing 3 of the entities that are in question, I do think that there can be an ethical dilemma of duty to loyalty. And I'm not trying to disparage Mr. Bowes. I think our county council will rise above that. But again, this is all about perception. How is the sheriff going to perceive this? How are we going to perceive this? How is the public going to perceive this? And when you have a single entity that is representing all the entities that are involved in this discussion, I do believe that there will be a conflict, if not now, eventually in the future. And that's why I will be supporting that this is a conflict. I know that just doing my own independent research, and again, I don't possess a legal degree, but the American Bar Association Model Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1.7A, clearly lays out the ethical dilemma of duty to loyalty. Dual representation of a single organization with multiple individuals that are involved requires written informed consent, requires written consent to the dual representation. Now, we've heard from the sheriff today, and I know he's not consenting to dual representation because he does believe that there's a conflict, and I believe that there's a conflict. I believe that a judge will come back and say that there's a conflict. And the perception is, and can be construed into, that the interests of the organization could and may override the interests of the individual. And I do believe that will be argued, and I do believe that the perception of the public and of the sheriff is that that county council or our firm, that the interests of our organization as a county may override the interests of the individual. And so I will be supporting that this is a conflict of interest on behalf of the sheriff. We have a government code 31000.6 that gives us the authority to assign outside counsel for the sheriff, and I do believe that we should get ahead of this and doing that. And just plain and simple, I think that's the right thing to do.
Okay, so first of all, Jeff, I think the world of you. We love you and we think you're the best sheriff. I've told you this 100 times, the best sheriff in the state, with the exception of the sheriff just north of us in San Joaquin County. But, so this is just very disturbing. I'm just going to say this is disturbing that where we are here. I've been on the board 14 years, and we can get into the CAD thing next, the next agenda item here. But I don't think we've never found ourselves in a spot where we were going at it with our own sheriff, where we've got, and the efforts we have made between you and I and everybody on this board to try to work this thing out. And it just doesn't seem that we're getting there. Public safety is our priority, and we know you're our priority here in the county. And the people hire us here to be partners and to protect the public, right? I mean, we're all hired by the public to protect them and to do right by them. And just to even think that at this point we're talking about bringing in the attorneys. I mean, no offense, Tom, but to bring in the attorneys now and to go at it with each other just amazes me that we're even to this spot. And so it's disappointing, very disappointing. And so, from my standpoint, as it sounds like most of the rest of the board, is that I'm going to go with, first of all, it's unbelievable we're at this point, and we're having to try to decide whether who's going to represent you to sue the board, or to prevent the board from doing this. And so I'm going to go along with what our council tells us, what our county council tells us, and I would hope that we could still continue to work together and try to figure this thing out before you have to go. If you're not going to, if this board decides that and that there's not a conflict here, and you feel the needs to then go to the Superior Court, I would hope we could work this out still before we get to that point, before we bring in the attorneys, before we start to lawyer up, as they say. So anyway, I'm going to stick with with the recommendation from County Council.
Well, we've heard from the other board members, so I feel that I need to weigh in on this for the discussion. This all stems, and I don't want to assume or put words in anyone's mouth, but this all stems from the choosing of the JPA with the CAD system. And obviously, the sheriff has made it known that that's not a CAD system that he agrees would serve the public to the best of its abilities. And we do have a development agreement with Oracle that was signed in May of 2023 for 5 years. Again, I think development agreement is a very key word. It's not to purchase, it was to help develop and continue, entertaining the option of utilizing that here in Stanislaus County, being one of the first large counties in the country that would be utilizing Oracle. But in the subsequent item that we see in 6.3, we're addressing that part of the discussion. And I don't want to jump to that item. A lot will be said in the further item, and I think this item is kind of being misconstrued as the discussion that we would be having in the next item, whether we go with that CAD system or not go with that CAD system, and getting the necessary necessary details of how we would proceed if the board decided to go with Oracle. This item is just strictly of who is representing us on that decision as far as which CAD system we go to. And so for me, I feel that 6.3 is where we should be having that discussion, and the boards and staff have come up with a plan to request the sheriff to provide a plan to outline the anticipated impact of a proposed alternative dispatch system that has already been chosen by the JPA. So for that reason, if we're just looking at that part of the conversation, I don't think the county council has a conflict of interest, because we are proceeding forward to have a discussion independently regarding the purchase of the CAD system. If in the future there is something that influences our decision based on input by the county council, I think that would be a time to have the conversation of, is there any undue influence by the county council's office of which CAD system we go with. Right now, that decision is still pending based on the previous item. So with the item of 6.2 just having a conflict of interest on the purchase of CAD, I don't believe that's a conflict at this point. And if there's any other future, as one board member of 5, if I feel that the county council's office is having any undue influence on our decision-making process, then that would be a time to exercise our authority for outside counsel. So I'll reserve that right for a later discussion after we have the discussion and see how 6.3 goes forward, and then the recommendations of bringing back the data from the sheriff's office on why, if, and how we implement Oracle continues, then we'll see if there's a conflict. But at this time, I feel that there's not a conflict to proceed forward with the request to look at the further movement on purchasing a different CAD system.
Chair, I need to add a piece of information, if I may. With respect to the JPA, the JPA documents provide for 2 potential counsel for the JPA, myself and the city attorney. I should have said 3. The JPA can also hire its own outside counsel. As to the purchase of the CAD software, I believe the city attorney, as well as myself, both of us provided advice to the JPA. The city attorney as to the city's procurement process, and me with respect to the ability to use the city's process. So with that, I'm done.
I would just further qualify, that was one of the questions I asked. So it was stated that you represent the JPA, but it's a joint representation by both City of Modesto and the County of Stanislaus.
Yes, both the city attorney as well as county council provided advice to the JPA.
All right. I think I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but we have other JPAs where you also, like the 10th Street Place JPA, where we have a county contingency, our CEO is on that board, 2 members of the Board of Supervisors, and yourself, and the same setup on the city side where they have 2 council members, their city manager, and the city attorneys. So
yes, it's not uncommon.
But then if you take, again, this is where I was getting into the weeds, as far as like an entity like StanCog, where they have their own outside counsel, that wouldn't be considered a JPA because that's its own governing board with other electeds on?
There are different forms of a JPA, but the SR 911 is its own legal entity, just like StanCog or our transportation agency. And while SR 911 utilizes both county council and the city attorney's office, if they wanted to, they could hire their own attorney. And I believe practically the reason why it's set up, why some of these are set up with with the county council and the city attorney providing advice, is in instances just as this, where there is a conflict or a potential conflict, where the city attorney or the county council can't provide advice. There is a backup available for the JPA to receive legal advice, so that they don't have to go out for outside counsel.
All right. Any other members of the board with further questions, clarifications? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. Like I said, this is just surreal that we're even having to, I mean, just to hear the attorneys and have to talk about this stuff, and that we're doing this with our own sheriff. But I'm going to make the motion that there is not a conflict here between, with our county council.
Is that an appropriate?
Is that the right way to say it, Tom?
That's an appropriate motion. Let me get to the, can you put the staff recommendation slide up, please? Yes. An appropriate motion would be to approve staff to determine that county council is able to ethically represent both the sheriff and the board of supervisors, period.
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Supervisor Withrow, second by Supervisor Chiesa. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any nays?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you. All right, item 6.3, approval of the Sixth Amendment to the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement between the City of Modesto and the County of Stanislaus for emergency dispatch services, extending the term of the agreement from January 1st, 2025 to December 2025. Also, to request the sheriff to provide a comprehensive plan to outline anticipated impacts of the sheriff's proposed alternative dispatch system. Conducting the presentation will be the Chief Executive's Office, from the Chief Executive's Office, Ruben Imperial.
Good morning, Chairman Greenwell, Board of Supervisors, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bowes. Today I'm presenting as Chairman Greenwell on the SR 911 Board Agenda item. It's a quick overview. As stated in the Board Agenda item, the Stanislaus Regional 911 is a public safety organization that provides comprehensive 24/7 emergency dispatch services for the county. In Stanislaus County, it utilizes a centralized model for 24 county law enforcement and fire agencies, including cities that contract for law enforcement services with the Sheriff's Office. It was formed in 1999 in partnership with the city and the county. However, our partnership has been in existence for dispatch services since 1978. The current agreement with Modesto, the current JPA agreement with Modesto expires on December 31st, 2024. We have submitted in previous times to amend the agreement, to extend the agreement. We've been working with the city on overall improvements to the SR 911 organization. Over the last year, we have continued that work, and along with hiring a director, working with the director, or the CDAC board working with the director to identify a CAD system and to identify other strategies to improve overall 911 services in the county. We are recommending to extend the term to December 31st, 2025. to continue the work with Modesto to benchmark best practices and structure and operations of a regional dispatch center. As previously stated in the previous agenda item, Sheriff Dirksky has communicated to the board that the Sheriff's Department will no longer be part of SR 911 JPA for dispatch services. Of concern to the board on this matter, under Government Section Code 53109, the Board of Supervisors does have a statutory obligation to establish 911 systems that connect a person dialing 911 to an established public safety answering point that dispatches emergency responders. So with this role of the Board of Supervisors and their legislative role in this process, the agenda item recommends that the Board of Supervisors request that the Sheriff's Department submit a comprehensive plan to outline the impacts of the Sheriff's stated intent to establish an alternative dispatch services through the city of Ceres. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here for any questions.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Members of the board, questions? Ruben?
Ruben, thank you for the presentation. Who has the ultimate authority on the CAD, on what CAD we use? I mean, obviously we're the legislative body, but does the advisory commission, they give us a recommendation, we make final improvement in conjunction with the city of Modesto, or how does that work?
Mr. Bowes can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, it's the commission, the CDAC commission that oversees the SR 911 JPA.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to take it out to the public for comment. Oh, actually, I do, sorry. I do have a public comment card. Lorenzo Garcia? Are you Lorenzo Garcia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That awkward quiet moment just got me a little confused.
Thank you, board, for the opportunity to allow me on behalf of Stanislaus Regional Emergency Dispatch Association, or SREDA, to address you today. The membership of SREDA has recently become aware of the intention of the sheriff to terminate the contractual and professional relationship between the Sheriff's Department and SR 911. For decades, both of our agencies have worked alongside one another, enjoying a professional connection based on mutual respect and a shared goal of providing the highest quality public safety services to the citizens of this county. The joint missions of our respective departments have given us the opportunity to serve the communities of Stanislaus with pride and integrity as partners, and we are thankful for the Sheriff's Department for the critical work we do in partnership with one another. SREDA believes that the work of supporting first responders in Stanislaus begins in our communication center, where dispatchers for the Sheriff's Department, the Modesto Police Department, and the majority of the fire departments in Stanislaus work not only side by side, but more importantly, back to back from one another. Our proximity to one another here at SR 911 is one of our greatest strengths. It allows us the ability to work as a team quickly and anticipate the needs of each user agency without ever having to call outside of our call center. The ability to anticipate the needs of all collective agencies that we serve saves seconds when seconds matter the most. For example, a critical incident occurring in the sheriff's jurisdiction can be immediately broadcast to the Modesto Police Department by their dispatcher, who is sitting a mere 5 feet away, and vice versa. Just this weekend, there was 3 separate examples where the sheriff's office requested the Modesto Police Department code 3, and we were able to just look behind us and fulfill that need without picking up the phone. A dangerous situation that happens to stop in front of a fire station can be immediately shared with the firefighters in that station with a shout across the room to the fire dispatch pod. Officers from one user agency can be sent as backup quickly to deputies from another with just a verbal request. SR 911 is proud to provide elevated levels of service and professionalism to all our user agency partners here in Stanislaus, and the right tools for the job are imperative to this mission. And that is an established and vetted CAD system that allows dispatchers to quickly and dispatch calls quickly. And the proximal ability to work together in the same center for the most efficient possible where seconds matter most. These are just some of the tools that keep deputies, officers, and firefighters alike safe here in the county. Likewise, a strong partnership between dispatch and first responders is a critical tool for the work that we do protecting our community. Sarita agrees with Sheriff Dirksey when he stated in his request for independent counsel that dispatch services are at the heart of the law enforcement mission in the county. A strong and fortified relationship between dispatch and first responders is critical for good outcomes in an emergency. Sarita is committed to providing the best and most efficient services to our community and to the first responders of Stanislaus who keep it safe. We hope that the Sheriff's Department will continue to do this critical work alongside us in partnership and in mutual support of one another for the good of Stanislaus County, as we have done for decades past. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Members of the public?
Sheriff Dirksey, I'm back. I actually think that this presentation that is requested, I think is long overdue. We've been dealing with this dispatch issue now for, I think we're at 39 months, and this probably should have been done at least a couple of years ago. So I think it's a great idea that number 3 up there, sorry, took my glasses off, number 3 up there is absolutely something that should be done. We look forward to doing it. My only request is that given kind of the duration that this situation has been going on of 39 months, 30 days is probably a bit tenuous given the holidays that are upon us, right? We all know that about half of the time between now and what would be January 10th is going to be with a lot of folks out of the office. And so my only request would be that we do it by the end of January, first part of February. Brooke has already put in the agenda tracker, I think January 28th as a day. That would give us, I think, more than sufficient time. And I think I'll just conclude with, Supervisor Withrow, I agree with you completely, right, that it's come to this, but we've had this conversation now for a very long time about the direction that we need to go. And quite frankly, one of the simplest ways to put this is that we are at kind of a juxtaposition where I cannot accomplish 2 things simultaneously, right? The board has approved the Oracle contract, which is of great value to financially to this county with a new and trend-setting product. And the current JPA has selected a different product. I cannot accomplish both simultaneously. So, right, it's just an impossibility. So we need to have this conversation. I look forward to it, and I do. I mean, to your point, I think it can be resolved, but we have to do it correctly. So, thank you.
Any other members from the public wanting to comment on this item? Please come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Ron McMurtry here again. I do have a strong spidey sense, I never thought I'd use that term, that there's an issue of transparency going on. As a member of the public sticking my nose into this, I really would like to know what the complaint is about why what's it called? What are the 2 products? There's an Oracle product, and why the other one's such a nightmare. I'm not clear on why there's this difference of opinion. I don't know, now I lost my train of thought. Okay, my other thing is, to Councilor Bowes particularly, does your, that's really the other item. Never mind. See, these things are entangled. Sorry.
Don't worry, you got 5 minutes to
Okay. The opinion of the Modesto Chief of Police. Do we know what his opinion is about what software the JPA should have selected? The SR 911.
Yeah, it was Central Square.
Oh, Central Square. Okay, right. Thank you. I know I can't remember the name. I wanted to say Foursquare, but I know that's something else. Okay. But what about the Chief of Police's opinion? He must, that's a big jurisdiction. They have to provide emergency services just like the sheriff.
All of the rest of the users of SR 911 selected Central Square. Sheriff Dirksey was the lone no vote on selecting Central Square.
Okay. I think that's all I have. I feel like there's something that's not being revealed to the public here, and I have concerns. Thank you.
You're more than welcome to come to the SR 911 JPA meetings. It's right there on Oakdale Road, 3705 Oakdale Road. maybe that might clear up some of the concerns you have. I think our next meeting, it's a public meeting, so it'll be posted, but.
Is it remote?
No, I don't think, no.
That's
No,
video
no,
meetings.
it's around the block, I'm not trying to.
I know, but it's probably during when I'm working.
Okay. Well, you're more than welcome to come out, and hopefully that addresses some of the concerns or issues you have. All right, thank you. If there's no further public comment, please.
Hello. My name is Leonardo Olide. I work at SR91 as a dispatcher. To clarify, some of the concerns that we've had with Oracle, they brought in, a while back, they brought in a developmental terminal, and from what we saw on the dispatching side of it, was something that was very rudimentary, very basic. When asked for improvements, like command line, which is something we use for everything, for running license plates, people, entering new calls, getting people on traffic stops, deputies, officers alike. It took them, I would say, roughly 2.5 months, which is in kind of in a emergency dispatch setting, a very long time for a very simple request. So it was something that we, or at least me internally, as myself as a dispatcher, when we're asking for something to just a basic thing, it's not anything that should be too hard to develop or implement. And for them, that kind of turnaround time is, yeah, it's not very efficient, and I would think it's a detriment to the public, in all honesty. So I know it's still in development. I hope that they do produce a product that is very well, like very good. But what we saw internally while we were looking and trying their CAD that they brought in as a testing unit, it was something that basically every dispatcher in the center said that needed a lot more work. And I think that's kind of what I think he was wanting to kind of clarify. That's the issues that we had with it and why we decided to go with Central Square as more of a actual, something that's established, it's been used in cities like Chicago. So, yeah, that's all I have. I just wanted to clarify that from you.
Thank you. I usually don't do this, but you've already spoken during public comment, but I think you're wanting to address this situation.
Yes. The statement is fair, right? Back when we looked at it a year ago, it is a development agreement, a developmental product, and back then it was not fully operational. However, it is fully operational now. It is deployed in Archuleta County, Colorado, where they have used it since like March 26th or 28th or something like that. Sheriff Mike LaRue, the sheriff there, gives it very good reviews. And we used it a week ago today for 12 hours when we covered the city of Ceres. We use it from their dispatch center. We use it for everything from CAD, or as CAD for dispatching. We use it for RMS, records management, and we used it for JMS, jail management. And so this notion that Oracle does not work is completely and utterly false. It does work. It works very well. It is a development agreement. And also what is completely overlooked are all of the issues with agencies that have Central Square and the fact that the company has been unable to deliver on their promises. That is across the state of California, across the nation. I spoke with another agency from a large fire-specific agency yesterday in the state of California that has major issues with Central Square that is going out to RFQ within the next 12 months to potentially replace it. So I'll leave it with that. That's why this idea of a report with a full analysis is very important, and it is what we should have done a long time ago. So thank you.
Any other members of the public wanting to speak on this item?
Hello again, Board. Matthew Orr. Again, I will reiterate my prior dispatch experience and knowledge of RMS systems. The sheriff would not put us in a situation that would either compromise our safety, my fellow deputies' safeties, or the public's. I think what is overlooked during the Oracle process was the JPA's lack of cooperation during the establishment of Oracle. There was messages put out of the lack of cooperation of them wanting to partake in the development of Oracle. Now, with technology, I mean, technology takes time, right? We don't just get something overnight. So I understand the command line concern, but in order for a command line to function in certain ways, there's got to be certain, I'm sure, codes that have to be encrypted, right, to put in there and make it do what you want to do. Oracle has produced that. I have seen it firsthand in the demo. They have a command line. So we can check that off the box of concerns, if you will. As far as the concern of the immediate backup or 1011 request, if you will, for neighboring agencies, with us going to potentially the city of Ceres, if that were to happen, I think we work just as many incidents with the city of Ceres due to our jurisdictions, being neighbors. And also from my experience, for an answer of a 911 call to transfer something over, it's a click of a button. Yeah, there's seconds involved, but in my time of transferring over or making requests from the Oakdale Police Department to the Sheriff's Office, I had sheriff's deputies on scene within minutes of a phone call. So while that may be a concern, I do think that that is the least of the concerns, and I think that a CAD that will be functional for the Sheriff's Office should be your guys' primary focus, along with the report writing system to do so. As a motor officer for the city of Riverbank, one of my things is, as much as I love my dispatchers, and I think they all know that, I try to take care of them the best that I can. Their staffing levels, just like us, have been detrimental to where, for me, due to the current report writing system we have, I have to ask for a case number every time I write a citation, which could mean I'm sitting on the side of the road for 3 to 4 minutes because they're busy on a 911 call. And that's not trying to direct their abilities or, throw negativity towards them, but at that point now I'm waiting to give somebody a ticket, they're getting agitated, whereas most RMS systems would be able to just populate my citation number and that would be good. We've had channels patched because of their lack of staffing to where now we have the police department and the sheriff's office on one channel trying to run people, and when you have priority incidents on both maybe PD channel 1 and now PD or SO channel 1, now you have every entity in the county on channel 2 patched together due to a lack of staffing, and we're walking all over each other. So again, I think that what the sheriff is asking for is not unreasonable, and from my experience in dispatching, it is definitely something that the board needs to keep their eyes open to, whether it be Oracle, RIMS, or other proven CAD systems. But please do your research on Central Square before trying to impose it on us. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Rebecca Leonardo. I'm the CAD administrator for SR 911, and I've had the pleasure of working with both CADs. And I went through the development process with Oracle in the beginning. I was asked to work with them, which we did. And I have lots of documentation on all of our work, and also with Central Square. And currently we already hardware is installed with Central Square. It is a vetted CAD that has been around. It may not be the best CAD, but it is a CAD that will work for our community. We should have been looking for a CAD back in 2020. In 2019, we did ask to start looking for a new CAD. I can't speak on behalf of what actually happened, but I will say that from the technology perspective, I don't feel that we have been going down the right path, and I think now we're in a good spot with going forward with Central Square. So, thank you, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wanting to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board.
Do we have a meeting on the 28th of January? For some reason, I haven't populated next year's calendar. I'm sorry.
Yes.
We do. I need to get on that, I'm sorry. So, yeah, I think we move forward with all three, but we add the time that the sheriff's requesting it as the holiday season. It will be next to impossible to get it accomplished in 30 days with the 2 weeks off and on. So we shoot for the 28th. Fair enough. That's my...
Any further discussion before we have a motion on the floor? All right. I got a motion.
You got the motion?
I got the motion.
Second.
All right. I got a motion from Supervisor Chiesa. Got a second from Supervisor Bob Condit. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, correspondence, acknowledge receipt of correspondence and refer as recommended on the agenda. Board of Supervisors reports. Any members of the board have anything they'd like to report on?
No.
Yeah, I do. So, at our, yesterday, we had the first graduation of our first care court individual who went through the program and graduated as an individual who had been living on the streets, qualified as schizophrenic, qualified for the program, agreed to it, and went through the program, and now he's in not living on the streets anymore. He was recommended by a family member. It was just a great accomplishment. Again, it's just our first one. It's been a year since we started the care court here in our county, which is pretty reflective of what's going on in the other counties at this point. But it was great to see him. This guy's in so much better shape than he was, and to graduate from the program and to move forward and get his life back was great to see. And I thank all the staff and everybody involved to helping make that happen, and we hope to have many more a part of that program.
All right. Any other board members? Supervisor Withrow and I got to join in the Modesto Holiday Parade. Very well attended, great weather. Got to see a lot of people and did the tree lighting. So it was great to see Modesto and Stanislaus County in the holiday spirit. I think Supervisor Keyes was at Turlock?
Turlock.
Series. All right, good. So everybody attended the holiday parade. This next, well, I'll just do the announcement right now. The Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors will be having a workshop this Thursday, December 12th at 9:30 a.m. at Valley First Credit Union, the second floor boardroom, not too far from here, 1419 J Street, Modesto, California, 95354. All right, any legislative, fiscal, and management reports? Chief Executive? No report today. Then I'd ask to adjourn and ask County Council to report on closed session items.
Yes, we have closed session this morning. We have a conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. We have two cases to consider. County of Stanislaus versus Gregory L. Ellis et al. That's in the Stanislaus County Superior Court, and the case number is CV 23000196. The second case is County of Stanislaus versus Valentin Chirinos et al. It's in the Stanislaus County Superior Court. Also, in the case number, there is CV 22004856, appropriate for public comment.
Any public comment on those items? All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you for all the members of the public and everyone else that participated in today's meeting. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate Deputy Hurd. Thank you for being here today.